Hi guys, so today's video is going to be the last chat for The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. Alright, jumping right into it because so much happens in this last chunk. I don't know where to start. I really don't know where to start. So I suppose I'll start with what is the most tragic part of this whole story, I would say. One of the most tragic things, which would be the death of Kelsey. That part, I knew it was coming because it was a reread for me. But somehow in knowing it was coming, it was almost more difficult. All the conversations that were being had between Vin and Kelsey, when she told him, like, don't leave me, are you gonna leave me too? And he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, darn it, he is though, he is gonna leave. It's one of those very frustrating things where the first time you're reading it, those small little details maybe will pop out to you, or those little moments in their conversations might stand out. But when you've read it and you know what's gonna happen, it stands out even more. So it was just so tragic for me the whole time I was reading it. I was like, dang it, how about you don't die? And the way he dies, it was like, he stood no chance whatsoever. He just got backhanded and then stabbed. It was just super emotional for me, clearly. Also, just all the times that he would ask Sazed to talk to him about religion and to find out what caused people to want to go forward, and you find out after he's died that in many ways that was him trying to figure out the key to finally making the Ska resist and giving them that spark that they needed. But there's that one time that he asks about those people who managed to hold out against the Lord Ruler and maintain their faith for their religion for the longest, and he was asking Sazed about it, not necessarily because he was looking for something to spark that in the Ska, but because he needed that. He needed that reminder, which I think we needed for Kelsey, because so much of Kelsey's personality is go, 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 never stopping. He never seems to face anything that causes him to doubt. And so in that moment, we see, I think, him in a more human, relatable way, because he's so close himself to losing hope, and he just needs that reminder that there were other people before him that also struggled, and they still persevered. I am very curious, because throughout all of these chats, I've been getting your perspectives on things, and for me personally, Kelsey was one of those characters that when he died the first time I read the story, I wasn't really that surprised. I kind of thought it made sense to the story. It was sad, but it definitely hit me more this time around. But I wasn't upset and mad that it happened, if that makes sense. I mean, I was in the sense that I didn't want the characters to die, but it wasn't so unexpected for me that I was angry at Sanderson for that decision. But I have seen some people before that didn't even want to keep reading, or they didn't want to continue the series after Kelsey died. So I'm going to put up a little poll, and I want you guys to let me know your thoughts on that, because I'm very curious. You can let me know in the comments also if you don't want to do the poll, or if you want to do both and you want to elaborate. I'm very curious what your thoughts were about Kelsey's death. A big thing that was also so tragic with Kelsey's death is how it impacted Vin, and Vin's initial reaction to him dying and her saying, now he's left me too, and he didn't deserve the recognition he was getting, he didn't deserve our trust, and she was just so angry. And reading it and knowing Kelsey and knowing that he was a good person who cared, it's frustrating to see Vin have that reaction, but at the same time, it's such a realistic kind of visceral reaction, and I appreciated that. I like that Sanderson doesn't shy away from showing us the flaws in the characters, because ultimately, while you're reading it, you're like, that's unreasonable, Vin. Be reasonable. That's kind of what I thought, but at the same time, I can only imagine this person who has felt so alone for so long, and somebody finally comes along and shows her something different. And then that person, even after expressing to them, please don't leave me, everybody leaves me. And after having been so open with him and admiring him and having this connection with him, he the whole time knew that he was going to die, and he did die, and he didn't even really try to get away, because this was his plan all along. And so for her to have that reaction, I thought it was incredibly realistic, even if in the moment I was a little bit like, come on, Vin, come on. Also, kind of going all over the place, before Kelsey dies, there is what we thought was Marsh's death, and something that was really, really pushing Kelsey to just finally go for it. And I'm very curious your guys' thoughts on what we thought was Marsh's death initially and then turned out, oh, now he's an Inquisitor. I'm definitely curious how many of you thought that when they showed that body that was Marsh. Did you absolutely believe it? Were you shocked initially? Were you shocked later when you found out Marsh was alive? What do you think is going to happen now? Because obviously there's more books in the series. What do you think is going to happen with Marsh and the Steel Inquisition? There are definitely some details that I can't get into too much because for a lot of you, you have not read this series before, so I of course don't want to spoil anything for you. But while reading this first book, something that I personally thought was kind of sad, there's two things, still involving Kelsey'S death and Marsh also, but Kelsey never knew that Marsh was still alive. I think that that's really sad, that he in life didn't realize that his brother made it through. I don't know, I thought that was kind of sad, although I don't know that he would have loved knowing his brother became an Inquisitor. I still think that in this one book it was sad. You get to the end and realize not only did he not know that his brother was still alive, but he never got to see his plan succeed. And that's kind of a bummer too, because you know he's worked so hard for this dream and for Mare's dream, his wife, and he never got to see it come to fruition. And that just sucks because you know you want them to see the reward of all the hard work they've done. Despite it being super emotional though, it's part of why I love the story so much. It's so tragic, but it's so fantastic because they do succeed. They do succeed in taking down the Final Empire. And Vin, okay, the first time I read this book, when Vin got captured and then she saw what the 11th medal showed her about what we found out was Rashik, and she decides, okay, I'm gonna go back because I think I know what to do. And I remember the first time I read it, I'm like, you think you know. You don't actually know, and you got your butt handed to you the first time, and Sazed had to kind of come save the day. The only reason they didn't kill you was because they had their own political maneuverings that you kind of helped them with. Otherwise, they would have just killed you. So for her to have just immediately jumped back in, I remember the first time I read it, I was like, let's think this through. Let's kind of figure out. Maybe we should know for sure. But at the same time, that just wasn't Vin at all. And we've seen that time and time again throughout this book, that in some ways Vin's a little reckless, and when she gets the gusto to do something, she just goes and does it. And so it worked out for her because she figured it out, but also there was a tiny part of me, and actually this time too, even though I knew it would work out, that I couldn't help but think like, we should figure this out for sure, otherwise you're gonna die. I of course want to know how many of you figured out what was going on with Rashik, how many of you kind of pieced together what was happening with the logbook, and you pieced together that he apparently was not only an allomancer but a ferochemist. I mean, who was able to figure that out? The first time, I mean, I keep saying the first time, but I obviously know now, so I can't really, you know, comment on my thoughts this time. The first time I read it, I was just kind of along for the ride, and so when it was revealed, I was like, oh, but I didn't have any theories or anything. I kind of was just reading it to enjoy the story, and I wasn't trying to make predictions or anything like that, but that's very different than a lot of other people. And for those of you who love to make predictions, I want to know if you were correct. Let me know. I'll put up a poll. I want to know if you got it, or if you had other predictions and it wasn't those. I would love to know what your incorrect predictions were. All in all, I loved rereading this book. I loved getting to see all of your point of views as well, for those of you who've been reading this alongside me. It's been so fun to see all of your thoughts, but I wasn't expecting to love this first book as much as I did on this reread. I was a little scared that I would go into it and then I would see it differently, and not a negative way, but just it wouldn't be the same and my emotional connection to it would be different. But if anything, it was just amplified, and so was my awe of Sanderson's ability to foreshadow. Oh my gosh, I can't really give away because so many of you, this is the first time read, but just know, it sounds stupid to say, but just know that not even in the second book, but by the end of the third one, you will realize that there are things in here. Because I was sitting there, I was reading it, and I'm like, okay, well this one little detail like has to happen, and then there's just one sentence, and I'm like, dang it, he did it! And I just remember I was like freaking out while I was rereading this, and You'll see. That's all I can say. I feel like such an obnoxious gatekeeper here, but you will see if you continue reading this series. Oh my gosh, is he just so good at the foreshadowing. So I think that each week the chat has progressively gotten more emotion-based and less actually kind of looking through and tabbing things and being kind of analytical. It just kind of, my emotions took over and now I'm a babbling mess. So let me know all of your thoughts. What were your favorite moments? What were the moments that made you the most emotional? Was there anything that you didn't like? Were there characters you didn't like, characters you loved? All that said, when this video goes up, I will either be on my way to Ireland or I'll be in Ireland. And I know some of you are wondering about the read along for the next one. Some of you didn't see my Ireland video, so you might not even realize that I said that I won't be doing dedicated videos the way I've been doing with this one for the next one, which is a bummer because, oh my gosh, are there so many like, what, mic drop moments in the second one that I really want to chat with all of you about. I think I might just do a general book chat at the end of the month once I come back from my trip, but regardless, I am still going to be reading the second one. Hopefully a lot of you are going to pick up the second one also, and the read along is still going to stay on track time-wise. I'm still going to be reading the second one here in May, and then the third one I will be reading in the following month. Thank you again to all of you for reading this with me. It's been so much fun, but anyway, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.